his dark beginnings in Detective Comics issue 27 in May 1939 to the current day movies, Batman has changed with the times. The Golden, Silver and Bronze Ages led to the camp but kid-friendly 1960s Adam West TV series. Then in 1986, a 4-part story by Frank Miller brought the character back to his origins and into the modern era, forging the pattern of what was to come. Tonight, FFSI discusses the seminal comic, The Dark Knight Returns.
Now that was a kick-ass opening.
That was, you guys did. I have to say before we roll into this, that opening sequence was absolutely splendid. You guys did very, very awesome work there. Well done, all.
All credit to AWK here. It's his vision and Sadako's absolutely amazing narration voice coming in. Just briefly describing this, all I can take credit for is giving the nudge and helping a little bit with the fine polishing of the jump scenes and the getting things to come together.
Indeed.
Well, it looked great. And so, 1986 masterpiece, The Dark Knight Returns, was originally released as 4 books. The Dark Knight Returns, The Dark Knight Triumphant, Hunt the Dark Knight, and The Dark Knight Falls. And then, of course, later released as the one that most of us are familiar with, the single volume, just as The Dark Knight Returns. And this book is outside the primary DC universe. It's 10 years in Batman's future. Though I personally think this could have just been a continuation storyline. It doesn't need to be an Elseworlds type of book. But it is outside of the standard continuity line. Many will call this the best Batman story ever. I argue it's perhaps the best comic book story ever.
I'm definitely with you there.
And they did themselves no service, though. There are 3 sequels to this. The dreadful The Dark Knight Strikes Back. If you see it on the shelf, run. The surprisingly good The Master Race, and don't get all spooked by the name. It's about Kryptonians. And then the much maligned The Golden Child. I didn't even bother with it because I didn't hear anything good about it. The original work, The Dark Knight Returns, though, that really did change comic books forever. It's an adult story with adult themes, and its footprint is all over everything in the modern era of Batman. From 1989's Batman, the Tim Burton film, the animated series Justice League, the Chris Nolan trilogy, and of course, Zack Snyder's Batman versus Superman. It tried to take things directly from the comic, but it did a terrible job in doing it.
I think he's lost his vision a little bit there when it comes to bringing it to life. But
everyone was waiting for that so much, and then what we got was not good. I'll be nice. I'll just say it wasn't good. One of the things I personally enjoyed about this story is it reacquaints us with really all the primary characters of the Batman story, and really only introduces 3 new characters. You get Helen Yindel, who's Jim Gordon's not Batman-friendly successor, the mutants, the hyper-violent gang that has taken over, terrorizing Gotham. And the one I love the best is Carrie Kelly as Robin, and we'll talk about her, I'm sure, quite a bit more later. But from the arts to the story to these characters, this book changed everything.
Yeah.
And I have my copy here as well. This was at the time the complete Frank Miller Batman. So it's leather bound. It's quite a nice addition. This was before all the other Frank. So this has Batman Year One in it, as well as some Santa Claus Batman story, which is goofy. But then, of course, The Dark Knight Returns. Yeah, like I said, you can't look at Batman in the modern era without seeing The Dark Knight. The influence was just extraordinary. And I love Frank Miller. It was genius. It was genius doing this, setting him 10 years in the future. Bruce's driving the race car. He's basically, he's been retired. He's not doing the job anymore. And they talk about the weather in some of the opening sequences, how it's they're in this terrible blistering heat wave, and you can feel the way they describe it. And I love Miller's paneling as well. The way he goes to the news sources, you have the little TV screens lining your page. The way he does his framing is just remarkable. It's so good.
Before you jump too far along on that one, it is okay. I was very young when this came out, very very young, but really into comic books. Of course, which kid wasn't in the 80s into comic books? Even the ones that were the big tough jocks, or like, oh, I'm the most popular kid. It's just like there's a stack of comic books if you ever went over to their place after school or something. And the visual style, not just in Batman or with the Frank Miller Batman, seemed to change in literally everything overnight. I remember reading magazines from Mad. I'm not sure if that's worldly popular, but a lot of people have read the Mad magazines. They seem to do a little bit of a twist and change there. There's also, even in the, we used to have newspapers, and for us kids, it was literally you flipped to the last page of the magazine and it was 3 comic strips there. It was Flintstones or something like that. The style definitely changed. From Modesty Blaze to Flintstones to I can't remember it was AXA, and there were a few other things like that, and it changed. It was better framing. It is, to use a music reference, and I know I'm probably killing half the audience here, but it's kind of how Metallica made the Black Album.
That's actually a very good analogy, Jim. Yeah, it is. You're right. That brought Metallica, brought metal mainstream.
It did. But it was so clean cut, so perfect on this is the style to portray, this is how to do things. And it's weird to see the I wouldn't want to call them flat cartoons, but where there is literally the stick figure drawing, where you don't expect any different view angles or anything like that, but that came to life as well. Can't say for certain that I didn't discover it again until a little bit later when we actually got the 3rd TV channel, the aerial. Because the first thing they showed on TV4 in Sweden when it launched, I think it was 1990 in August or something, was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And I believe that's the first time I've ever seen a cartoon being able to emulate usually the flat images, but bringing it to 3D, to bring in depth, to make sure that you didn't just pay attention to the character, but you pay attention to the background, what's going on, what's the visual, what's the dialogue. And that's what the change in Batman for me has been. It is that kind of Metallica's Black Album. I know, like I said, I probably lost half the audience on that, unless you know the music.
No, I think no, that is a very good analogy, and I think most of the people who are hanging out with us this afternoon probably. I mean, I'm of a certain age. I'm ancient, so I was in my teens when this book came out, and man, and you were describing art for the turtles. This is a very cinematic comic book. It almost it feels like you're watching a film while you're reading this book, and that they have done a very good animation version of this. DC does every night. They were doing a great job. Most of their recent releases haven't been phenomenal, but their two releases of The Dark Knight Returns Part 1 and 2 are almost frame for frame from the comic. They did a very good job with it, though the imagery in the comic really does leap off the page at you, because there are certain iconic images from the book. With Batman riding the horse, the lightning silhouette. That's one of the things that we're talking about the art of this book. He uses silhouettes so very well. Superman, you just see teeth, eyes, and everything else is black. It's extraordinary work. And it's funny.
Alex has been really, really good at picking those things out for the intro that we just saw, where you have the face of Batman. He's diving toward you because he's jumping off a building, whatever it is in the anime. But you do see the pointy ears, you see the white eyes, but the rest is moving so fast that it is you get the kind of like Batman iconery, or whatever the word is. So that's like, yep, that's
and
Batman.
I hadn't seen anything like that before this book. I hadn't seen a lot of things like it that are in this book anywhere else. The way Miller drew Batman was unlike any Batman we had seen. He's older, and he's got that. He's bulky. He's a giant dude. And I mean, Miller has a very unique style anyway. But to see what he did to bring Batman to life, I have the Dark Knight Returns figures as well, and it's just they're so different than any other Batman. And Jim Gordon, Yindel, the hairstyles, a lot of things. This was almost a prophetic book in the way he looks at the way media covers things. The woke doctor who's taking care of Harvey Dent, and the Joker. Ultimately, he's okay. It's really Batman's fault. Blaming the good guy for the bad guy's obsession, his problem.
And all through that, he's wearing a Superman t-shirt or jumper.
Yes. But like I said, so Miller was predicting things that hadn't happened yet, or at least not as much in the world of the 80s. We didn't have 24-hour news cycles, but this comic book, you kind of get the 24-hour news cycle. And like I said, the woke doctor. And there are debates. It was Lois's cousin. Lana?
Lucy. Lucy Lane, wasn't it?
Who's having I think Lana Lang. If I may be getting my name wrong. She's like on a debate show, defending Batman's actions against some crazy activist types, and it's it's like The View in the modern television era.
There is another one very iconic show that did it around the same time, and that was RoboCop.
Yeah,
it constantly commercialized TV on in the background 24/7, and that was a foreign concept for us in the 80s. I don't recall TV being 24/7 until maybe the very late 90s.
Yeah, I mean OJ, and I hate to him up. The OJ story is the thing that really started the 24-hour news cycle because they were following him constantly, and that's when it all happened. So like I said, in 1986, it didn't really exist. You had CNN and that was pretty much it back then. How the world has changed.
Just a point about the like, because I think what you're talking about there is the liberal versus the, like, these kind of really crazy liberals who are kind of arguing more for the rights of criminals than for regular people.
Yes.
And that was kind of that was going on in like a lot of films at the time, like Dirty Harry, and and also like in do you remember the TV series Sledgehammer, which is kind of like a parody of Dirty Harry?
Oh, and, it was a private detective show, and it was a parody private detective show. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, and like there was that scene where he's with this media crew filming him as he goes on his tour of like crime fighting, and the guy says, "I've seen you detectives do nothing but eat donuts all day." He says, "I want to correct that stereotype. Look at this donut, like." This is full of dough, and all the sugar goes to your brain. Before you know it, you turn liberal, and you're voting for gun control and all this. And that was brilliant. But I think what I took from it, the scene was that Batman had been a big sensation in his time, and then once he disappeared, it was almost like there was nothing left to write about him. That was like everyone had said all the praise, and that's when inevitably the backlash happened, and people started to kind of talk about him in a kind of less, less kind of praising way. And then you get all these academics arguing about how he's actually the problem. And it's almost like he's looked on as a dinosaur by today's standards, as like almost as bad as the criminals and not the kind of model citizen we believe in. And
well, that's also how Yindel, Jim Gordon's successor, views him. She views him as nothing but a vigilante. She doesn't think he is worth anything. He has never done anything good. And Jim just kind of lets her go. He's like, well, you'll see. I guess, but he's not. Of course, Batman hasn't shown up yet. I think Yindel is just taking over as Bruce comes out of retirement, and she tries to stop him, and it goes horribly wrong. And she actually, because of her actions, causes more problems than would have existed otherwise. She doesn't really. She has a great story arc, though. Frank Miller didn't write these characters as these one-dimensional. Gordon is the old man, last man standing. Yindel is the upstart who can't stand Batman. In the modern Karen kind of thing. But she actually has a great story arc. She starts in one place thinking the way she thinks about Batman, and then by the end of the book, as Gotham is burning and Batman is the only one who can stop things and set the course of action for things to go right. She's like, and her line is, he's too big. I can't, because they're like, well, are you going to arrest him? She's like, he's just too big. And because she understands that Batman is more than the man in the suit. It's the thing that he represents. And that's what the people of Gotham are responding to. And we lost Sudoku.
Yeah, it seems like he wandered off there. But this is something that me and AWK was talking about a lot when we were planning around this particular talk show, the things we wanted to bring up. And also, happy birthday to Batman. I believe this year is the 85th anniversary.
Yeah, he looks fantastic.
He's younger than you and I, Robin. But where was I going? There's so many things that are going to influence there, and I was trying to find good topics to go around here because for me, it's always been Spider-Man, the Amazing Hulk or the Great Hulk or whatever it was actually called, because sadly living in Sweden, everything got translated into words didn't retranslate back.
So it wasn't the Incredible Hulk over there, Jim. It was just the fascinating Hulk, the awesome Hulk.
It's essentially like that. So you translated the word from English, into Swedish, and then you took the Swedish word and tried to translate it back to English, and it was like, that doesn't make sense. I remember the first time, not when I moved over to UK permanently, but the first time I was over here in UK in the mid-late-ish 90s. And obviously, the first thing you go to is places like Forbidden Planet. I'm not sure if it was called Forbidden Planet, but it was the same location as where Forbidden Planet has been. A massive comic book store and everything. And I was just looking at, I recognized the covers of these comic books, but I do not recognize the names.
The titles.
That's
funny.
So
when you read Dark Knight originally, was it in English, or did you have the translated version? Did they release a translated version?
So the first time I read it, it was in the translated version.
Sorry, my router got overheated.
Yeah, welcome back, Sadako. The first time I read it, it was in Swedish, and I think that's the last time I actually read something in its translated language, because it gets so wrong. And something that always irked me is my favorite fantasy books, the Bulgaria, the Malorian. I was going to say Rings of Power, but that's not the one. It's
No, sir, no.
The Wheel of Time.
Really subtle, really.
Yeah, the Wheel of Time and stuff like that. And the word that just doesn't translate, doesn't give the same meaning, because the author that sat down and wrote the whole concept, they are within the language that is most comfortable to them, which gives them more breadth and depth to describe.
And Miller did write, so he didn't. So sometimes you could get, the guy writes a comic, or someone who does the artwork for the comic. But Miller did. He both wrote and drew this book. Other people did the colors for it, and I forget who that was. I'd have to look. It's either Klaus Janson or Lynn Varley, and I apologize, I don't know which one did which. But the colors in this book, again, we were talking briefly. They're just dramatic.
I believe it was Lynn Varley was the other one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was, Klaus Johnson and Lynn Varley. Now, thing is, I did actually. I thought I'd do a bit of research and actually try to get a feel of what Batman comics were like before this today. So I actually went to my library. Now, I was hoping I could track down the original, the very first edition of Batman. I didn't manage to. The only thing I could find was some stuff from the 1960s, late 60s and 70s. I read one strip rather that was about was it Dead Man? And it was this strip where Dead Man had he turned evil and he was possessing one person after another, trying to kill Batman. Like he possesses Robin and gets a gun and tries to shoot Batman, and then he leaps from him to Commissioner Gordon, and so it becomes this long thing where Batman has to find out why Dead Man's turned against him. Now, that was very much I didn't think it was it wasn't like the 1960s, comic, the 1960s TV series. It wasn't goofy, but it wasn't. It was typical run-of-the-mill comic, I suppose, bit gritty. But I think the difference is, of course, it was a comic. It was about the point was action, action, and it was just was The Dark Knight Returns, and I read it today. I was realizing that it actually was like a novel in terms of they were thinking in terms of, well, this isn't just about telling action set piece after set piece. It's not just about a regular fight. It's the idea is that each frame intrigues you. It's almost like when you're writing a book, you it's almost like the reader goes in blind, and the details that emerge from the telling of the story gives them a feel of what the room is like, what the environment is like, what the character is like. And reading, and the comics seem to be like that in terms of you get bits of little frames of stuff that would give you a wider idea of what Gotham City is like, and what the feel of Gotham City, which I didn't get from the Dead Man thing. The Dead Man thing was just a generic adventure, but this was actually gives you the feel of Gotham City, the mood of it, and the depths of it. It kind of almost like it's like when it gets poignant, it's like, it really sharpens the knife. It sharpens the point, like when Batman walks by the same spot where his parents are killed.
Yes,
and he's saying
that is an awesome series of panels when the mutants are coming up to Bruce, and Bruce is still retired. He's still checked out at this point, but he's definitely got something gnawing at him, and he finds himself there. He didn't consciously go to Crime Alley, to the spot where his parents were killed. But he found himself there, and Miller's use of the panels, and these are the panels that you see every time you watch a Batman movie now. Mm-hmm. The pearls dropping, the gun going off, those close-up panels, and then Bruce standing there just with his hands by his side, and the mutants, hey man, he's into it. I can't do it. I can't slice and dice when they're into it, man. And Bruce is like, come on. And God, it's just so visceral. And of course now, since I've seen the animated film, every time I look at the panels of the comic book, I hear Peter Weller's voice delivering the lines of Batman and Bruce Wayne. That was great casting. I love Kevin Conroy so much, and he was perfect for every project that he did. But getting a different voice actor for the older Bruce, although they used Kevin Conroy as in Batman Beyond as well as the older Bruce, but he was a much older Bruce there, but neither here nor there. But in this universe, the Peter Weller voice casting was fantastic. One of the themes of The Dark Knight Returns and he visits this several times in the comic. It's almost the story of the Scorpion and the Frog. You are what you are, and you can't you can't be something else. Bruce tried to fiddle faddle away his time as a race car driver, doing all the other dangerous stuff to fill that void. But ultimately he's called back to being Batman. Joker, who without Bruce is a husk. He hasn't spoken in 10 years. He's in Arkham, and he just sits there straight faced, which is a little bit weird. And he's almost unrecognizable as Joker. Harvey Dent, who gets plastic surgery to have his face fixed, can't not be Two-Face. He still has to do it. And like I said, it's that repetitive theme. And then the Boy Scout, Superman.
Yeah.
That the whole Superman story, there's that, the war going on in Corto Maltese or it's the same place they always like to use. One of my favorite panels in the book, I know I'm jumping kind of all over the place and I apologize, but it's all up here, is when he intercepts the nuclear weapon and he's blown into space, and he's just, and they did use this in the Zack Snyder film, again, not as well. And he's shrunken. The blast took it all out of him. And then he falls to Earth, and he absorbs the power from the sunflowers or the flowers around him, and he sucks the energy out of them to get back to north. It's just it's a beautiful series of panels to look at. But again, like I said, the story, none of these characters are one-dimensional. You get Oliver Queen back. He's got one arm. He hates Superman. And most of the heroes are gone. They talk about it a little bit. Hal's gone back to, Hal's gone back to the stars. Diana went back to her people. So after Bruce left the game, it seems like everybody except for Superman left. They either went underground or went away entirely. And I do like, so Miller,
that is a part of the universe that I didn't get, because I was, even though I was a, pardon the language, piss poor broke teenager, limited amount of weekly allowance to be able to get the comic books and whatnot. I had to borrow it from friends, and sometimes I was several months behind. It's the I got the feeling that literally every comic book, regardless of what hero there was that I was following, from Wolverine, Spider-Man, Hulk, Batman, Superman, it seemed to be a kind of a disconnect or a jump right there at the same time happening, where everybody just left. There's like, I'm hanging up my costume, hanging up my hat, my robe. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm going away. It's like a petulant teenager just going, it's like, nah, screw you. I'm doing what I'm going to do.
Well, it's not a dissimilar theme to what happened in Watchmen, though, where the superheroes were forced to not be superheroes anymore. It seems like they went out of favor. And the only one that wants to play ball with the government so he can still get out there and do stuff is Superman. That's like the comedian in the Watchmen universe. He was essentially a federal agent. So I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought briefly. So it's like they went out of favor, and now in the later books you do see some other stuff, but with the exception of the Master Race, and again it's we're talking about Kryptonians, none of the other books are worthwhile. There are one of the things I like about the Master Race is that in that book they reflect back to the original book a lot. There are a lot of parallels that happened in those stories, and it's very interesting. And if you haven't read that one, that is worth your time. Unlike DK2, don't touch it with a 10-foot pole. And the Golden Child, I didn't bother with because I'd already heard it was terrible, and I don't need to waste my time on terrible things.
I very nearly bought The Dark Knight 2 today. I thought, well,
don't do it.
I know. It was on the shelf, and The Dark Knight wasn't, and didn't. But never mind. Look, you see, there's those. But I thought it would be good because it was Frank Miller again, wasn't it?
It was. No, Miller did all of these, but man, Dark Knight 2, just everything that was good about the Dark Knight got lost in the Dark Knight 2. Because Batman's out there doing the job, but they really screw up the character of Carrie Kelly. They bring Dick Grayson back into the story, and it's just so poorly handled. Now, Carrie Kelly, I'd like to talk about Carrie Kelly a little bit, as she is such a significant part of this story.
Go ahead with that, but I'm going to put up Miranda's comment here. So continue, and I'll keep the comment on this stream.
Oh, yes. The Cult is one of the best Batman books ever written. I can say that definitively. It's not as good as The Dark Knight Returns, but very few books are. So that's a really high bar. But The Cult is an extraordinary comic book. You see Batman beaten down in a way that you've never seen before. And I'm not talking about the Bane stuff. The Cult, like The Dark Knight Returns, is a very adult themed book. It's not meant for, teenagers can appreciate it, but it's definitely not a kid's book. It's also a prestige format. But the character of Carrie Kelly, the way she's introduced, talking to her friend, they're going through the arcade. The mutants are out there, and people. The arcade is a shortcut, and they know it's dangerous, but it's a shortcut, so they do it anyway. And then they get attacked, and Batman saves them. And what I love is their account, her friend's account. I don't remember what her friend's name was. Talking about, he was like a werewolf. He was 7 feet tall, and it was hilarious. But that's where Carrie and her parents are super libs. And this is funny because Frank Miller himself is a liberal dude, but her parents are obviously hippies from a bygone era. You go to their apartment, they're talking about, the protests back in the day, man. And they're smoking pot, and she has ordered a Robin costume, and she's doing her thing. And she used to be a gymnast. So it's not just a girl who suddenly puts on the suit and does stuff. She's not a Mary Sue. But she's very, very intelligent. But like I said, so she has physical training. She knows how to move the way that Robin, our earlier Robin, was trained by Bruce, of course, but he was also an acrobat. So she has that. But they introduced, so Carrie Kelly's a girl, by the way, in case anybody is curious. This wasn't a big deal, though. It just was. There was not a big controversy or, hey, they made Robin a girl. No one said things like that. no one cared. It was like, okay, got it. New Robin. It's a girl this time. No big deal.
It is because it wasn't about it being a girl or a girl boss. It was just a character. And for me, Robin, the character of Robin has always been someone extremely gymnastic, very flexible. Think of Robin as like Jackie Chan. I think, well, at least I hope everybody has seen a lot of Jackie Chan films, but it is essentially a Jackie Chan. It is a tiny, scrawny, 5'0" person with amazing moves, capabilities, able to think quickly on their feet. Well, Jackie Chan is extreme in that sense, like using a bifold ladder or whatever it's called to like defeat 20 enemies and whatnot. But Robin, for me, has always been the creative, inventive character to provide the support where Batman has the blind spots, regardless of who's playing Robin.
And that was seen very clearly when she followed him to the dump where the mutants are set up. And Batman, he shows up in the Batmobile, which is basically a freaking tank. It's incredible. But he's taken down with using rubber bullets because he doesn't use lethal force, taken down all the mutants, but the mutant leader's left. And he calls Batman out, come out and face me, old man. And Bruce, hubris gets the best of Bruce, and he knows better, and he goes out anyway. And this guy is a lot stronger and a lot younger, and he kicks Bruce's ass. But Carrie is there. She followed him, and she throws some gunk in the mutie's eyes and manages to drag Bruce back to the Batmobile. And the scene that follows with her, their conversation in the Batmobile is just so wonderful because Alfred is remote driving the Batmobile back, and she stayed in there. She didn't get out when she brought Bruce in. She stayed in there, and they're going back to the cave. And Bruce is pretty out of it, and Bruce is like, "What's your name?" And she's like, "Carrie Robin." "Hi, I'm Bruce." And Alfred's like, "Master Bruce, please stop talking." And they get back to the cave, and like I said, Bruce is just a bloody mess. And he wanders off into the dark of the cave. And he's just by himself. He's waiting. I don't want to say it's a supernatural element, but it's a semi-supernatural element. The relationship between him and the bats. It's something that drives him. And so you see him peeling off the bloody suit, and he's just standing there in the dark, waiting for the bats. And when they come, it basically restores him to a degree. And he comes up, and Carrie, the new Robin, just jumps into his arms because he's going to be okay. And this is the foundation of their relationship. But I love every time they start doing something, Bruce says, "If you don't do exactly what I said, you're fired." And of course, she does shit all the time that is not what he said. She reprograms the helicopter, and which is hilarious because he's trying to give the command for the helicopter to do something, and she's like, "Peel," and he goes boom, and the turbos kick in, and she's like, "Am I fired?" And he's like, "No." But he's so short with her. But there's a point where they're hanging from the bottom of the helicopter, I think, and she starts to fall, and he grabs her, and basically he's holding her like a child at the point because she is, and he's comforting her though, and he's saying, "Good soldier, it's okay, good soldier." And it's his relationship with her is very much like I imagine his relationship was with Dick in the beginning. Not, you're taking out the Jason Todd, Tim Drake didn't even exist yet. And of course, Damian Wayne, who I personally can't stand. But the Carrie Kelly character, like I said, she is almost the heart of the story. She's seeing Bruce the way, through these young eyes, the hero that he was. and that she hopes he can be again. And that whole from beginning to end, when they're in the cave again, I love her story a great deal. Like I said, there are no one-dimensional, two-dimensional. These are full, fleshed-out characters. And Carrie, like I said, for me, is almost the heart of the book. You have Bruce's story, but you see it through her eyes for a great many of the panels. And I think that's incredibly important. If you didn't have her there, I think the story would have a giant hole in
it. Go ahead, Sadako. You go first.
No, but I mean, it is interesting that, as you said, that the Frank Miller came from kind of, having a hippie background, where there was the hippie zeitgeist in the 60s. And it's like the 80s seemed to be not what you'd expect to follow from the hippie zeitgeist, where it was a very reactionary decade, wasn't it? I mean, like, in terms of like, a lot of films were about, where the rough kind of, cops and like Batman were the heroes and the liberals were the problem. And, so it seemed like it was an oddly reactionary outcome from what had been in the 60s. I mean, as it went, like, I think it was more in the 90s you saw maybe a bit more of a more hippie-ish take come out on, action films and, like, for instance, even like Fight Club's about the idea that, in a way that, like in Fight Club, of course, as the business were, they're saying, look, that violence is kind of shown to be not the answer, and violence is shown to be not a way of life most people would want any part of, kind of thing. And it's almost like it's a less misanthropic take on society than, say, Batman. Like, for instance, when they're given that Fight Club assignment of, you're going to start a fight with a stranger and lose, and it's like, you'd think and say, like, for instance, in a film like RoboCop, you'd think that'd be easy as possible. Everyone in Detroit is out for a fight, because that's just the worldview of the film. But in Fight Club, it's shown that it seems like more the more liberal, hippie-ish takers kind of become more, the zeitgeist. But
you're bringing me a bit in with that comment actually on a sidetrack, Sadako. I'm not going to interrupt you too much, but I do have a sidetrack once you're done. So go ahead.
No, it's just it is curious that you'd think the 60s generation would have led to a kind of more liberal kind of media in the 80s, and it seemed more reactionary, if anything.
I mean, the 80s was the action decade. I mean, that's where we had all of the movies that we talk about that we love with Schwarzenegger and Stallone were 80s movies. That was that. But yeah, the 60s, and I wasn't there, despite what many of you may think. Yeah, that generation didn't produce what you thought it would. Of course, it still hasn't.
We did have the Saints and whatnot from the 60s. We had not the Agents, what it was called, not Spectre.
The Avengers.
The Avengers, yeah.
Not
we
the Avengers, but the Avengers.
Yeah. But it was differently named in UK and then differently named again where I was growing up. So
that's not shocking at all. But the liberals in this book, like I said, you have Carrie Kelly's parents who are just kind of, you have the doctor who's just a complete. This was before woke existed, but he's woke as all hell.
He's a bit like he's a bit like one of the Young Turks, isn't he? He's like that vitriolic, like you're almost doing it for show, just being vitriolic about Batman and being ridiculously hyperbolic.
And and that dude's hair was crazy, by the way. And he had a book out too, Dr. Walper, I think his name was. And it's like, it's not me, it's you, or some ridiculous thing. And he's just all about, self-affirmation. Hey, yeah, you're okay. I'm okay, you're okay. That's what it was. I'm okay, you're okay. And Miller does touch on politics a little bit here. The president in The Dark Knight Returns is very clearly Ronald Reagan. And I don't know if it was meant to be insulting, but I didn't take that take on Reagan to be insulting. He wants Superman to go control Batman because he has a certain vision of the way order should be. And then Gotham just erupts again because of Batman, or is Batman there because the eruption is about to happen? You have to look at that. The old heroes bringing out old villains. But the mutants are clearly a problem. And remember what happens when Bruce finally tames the mutant leader, which is also one of the best scenes in the book. You don't get it, do you, kid? This is hey, cannoli. This isn't a mud pit. This is an operating table, and I'm the doctor. And he's just snapping his limbs. You hear the crack and the screams, and you just laugh because you're just seeing this guy who took Bruce down being taken apart by Bruce very scientifically, because Bruce has his wits about him right now. He's going into the fight knowing what to expect, which is kind of what Bruce always did. And he knows how to take him down. But he has to, and I forget who is watching. I know Gordon is watching and someone is with him. And I don't remember who, and you have to forgive me for that. And they're like, why don't you go help him? And he's like, no, he has to do this. And when he does, the mutants all fall in line. And they become the sons of Batman. Now, it takes them a minute to find their legs, because they're using lethal force and being generally not very good. And Bruce has to set them straight. He's like, these are the weapons of the enemy. You're going to use your wits and your fists tonight. I will teach you my ways in time. And again, the dialogue in this is top notch. It's not cliche. It's not, things you could hear in any, in 1,000 other comic books, the good guy versus bad guy. There's a lot more gray and nuance in this story. Hell, just Jim Gordon has his own story in this book with his retiring and his wife, and what you're fearful for their safety, because Jim ends up killing a teenager who's trying to kill him. But that's, that harkens back to right now too, though. They turn, Jim having to take this guy out, the bad guy out, onto him. He killed a kid, man. He was just a kid. Well, he was a kid who was going to kill Jim Gordon. But now the spotlight is on him. And like I said, and his relationship with Yindel is tense at best. Is the commissioner is going to be replacing him. But you definitely get a lot of the human side of Gordon, and as the old man, because he's not, he's got to be, he was older than Batman was anyway, so he's got to be in his late,
he has at least 25
70.
years of service in the police force, so he knows what's going on. He knows where he's being forced. He doesn't want to, but he's being forced to let stuff go.
Except
pretty
his
much
age.
like it is, and this is very prophetic from back in the 80s. It's what the police are doing now.
Yeah.
At least here in UK, they go around and arrest people for stuff they retweet. They didn't tweet it. They retweeted someone else's tweet on Twitter, and 7 police officers can turn up at your front door. I forget his name, because he's the father of a fairly famous UK star. I don't think he's globally famous, but he was the father or the uncle. And he actually he had a wherewithal about him to bring out like a smartphone just to record it. And it was like 7 police officers turning up to his front porch to arrest him, pretty much, for retweeting a crappy tweet. I will have to admit it wasn't
unfortunately
offensive, but it wasn't the best.
What's happening over there is coming soon to a country near you.
But essentially, the whole Batman universe for me is that the police have given up that part. They're giving up the ghost, so to speak. They are no more there to serve the public, rather than just trying to, let's not make it too bad. It's kind of like you have a massive white wall and one of your kids throws a black crayon or something at it, but instead of having to repaint the entire wall, you just paint that tiny little patch.
Well,
and
Yindel
really off.
Yindel is more concerned about catching Batman than she is anything else. Once he is back full force, that's all she wants to do. And it's not until Gotham is literally burning to the ground that she understands the necessity for for Batman, for what he brings to the table.
I mean, here's almost a reading I have of what is going on with the comic, because the idea that, I mean, I suppose Batman retired partly because he got tired of it. He got tired of that lifestyle, and also he felt like, well, I'm not getting any younger. I'm not as, I'm getting to the point where my body is not quite what it was, so it's not quite able to fight as I used to. And but almost the idea that there's perhaps this naive hope that as the intelligentsia of society, the psychologists and the people who talked about crime and the causes of crime, that it almost, the hope was that if that was encouraged, to understand the criminals and understand the idea that Batman is shaped by his history, and almost like as the more people wrote about Batman, the more people wrote about what made Batman who he is, and this got into this whole child psychology business of how we're all shaped by our environment. There was always this hope of, well, the intelligentsia would determine the causes of what makes criminals, and maybe how people can work through their emotions to express themselves better and not express themselves through violence or criminality or whatever. And the idea was it was supposed to create this better society, but it just meant that the intelligentsia became relied on whilst society went even worse, because they were just that out of touch with the truth.
I'm okay, you're okay.
Yeah.
I'm not sure exactly on the context there, because obviously I'm a Viking living in the United Kingdom. I've only visited the States twice, so I don't really know. I could probably not even find Minneapolis on the map.
It's in Minnesota.
Yeah, but
north, young man, north. You'd fit in fine. It's your kind of weather up there.
All right, that sounds like a good place. Not on the top of my list of places I would like to go the next time I can afford to get over to the States. But
no, don't add it to your top 49.
Why, you only got 51 states or something like that?
But we got 50. There's only 50.
Okay, right. Yeah.
There's not a lot this is just me, and I'm not bashing on the people of Indianapolis. Though it's not. There are a lot of things in Michigan that I myself would not want to. It's like going to Gotham before Batman got in there and cleaned it up.
Yeah, the only thing I really know about the States is I've been told to avoid the Windy City. I believe it's that Chicago or something.
Yeah, that's Chicago. Also very dangerous
told
place.
Us Vikings that it's cold even for you.
That's not why. The weather isn't why I would avoid Chicago. It'd be the getting shot is why I would avoid going to Chicago. It's raining lead in Chicago today. So, but yeah, Sudoku, we talked about this a little bit earlier too. The prophecy of the Dark Knight Returns, the things that are in this book that we are seeing in modern society is little scary and unfortunate. So we see the reoccurring. We see Two-Face, Harvey Dent. We see the Joker. We even see Selena Kyle later in the book. She is not looking fantastic in the book. I don't know why Miller did that to her, but he did. The Joker story is fascinating, and it's not even the end of the book. Is the thing? It's Joker is, like I said, he's checked out. He's in the asylum. He's not anybody really because he doesn't have Bruce. It's not, and when he sees him on TV that first time, he hears them talking about him, and he's sitting there. He's like, Batman, darling. And he gets the grin back on his face. Oh, it's such a fantastic scene. And this is a book of great scenes. And Joker in The Dark Knight Returns is a lot freaking scarier than the Joker almost ever was in the comics. There's no dancing around. He is killing a lot of people. And he's crazy. He's a legitimately horrible person. So when Bruce finally responds with near lethal force, he throws the I want to say the batarang because they're not, but they're basically the bat-shaped throwing stars, and it ends up in his eye, and he's shocked. He's shocked that Bruce did this. He's like, "Are you out of your mind?" And then they go into the tunnel of love. And that whole sequence where he's just stabbing the bejesus out of Bruce, his whole midsection is taking a beating. But Bruce he basically cripples him, and Joker is just sitting there, and they're having this exchange, and he breaks his own neck so that the police will think that Bruce killed him. But even then, why should it matter? He should kill the Joker. He should be able to. And I understand that's a line Bruce won't cross. But the police come into the tunnel after Batman, like he's the bad guy. And that's where you get that good helicopter rescue from Robin, from our gal, from Carrie Kelly. And just like there's just one good panel after another in this book. There's nothing wasted. From the beginning of the book, where Bruce is sitting in the chair watching TV, and the ad comes on for, coming up tonight, Zorro with Trevor, and Bruce has the flashbacks again, and he walks out onto the patio and he knocks the statue over. It's just, there is no wasted page in this book. Everything is contributing to this amazing story of a man who can't not be who he is, despite how much he tried to do so. Unfortunately, on that note, I am going to have to depart. I have my own responsibilities that I must attend to this afternoon, and I'm sorry. But thank you for having me, Alex, and Jim. It was good to see you. Sudoku, good to see you as well.
You too.
So again, before I leave, if you haven't read The Dark Knight Returns, do it now, because you're failing at your life. And skip The Dark Knight 2, but read Dark Knight 3, The Master Race. Again, don't let the title scare you. It's about Kryptonians. But like I said, if you haven't seen it, there are so many parallels between this book and that book, and they actually do Carrie Kelly right in that book, unlike they did in The Dark Knight 2, which was just shit. Oh, sorry. I got to V-chip myself. Not my show. Not my show. My show, it's a free-for-all, but I try not to do that in other people's shows. So
it's all good, Roman. It's always great to see you on the show, and I'm still so really jealous about your background with all the figurines that you've collected and all that.
Jim, there's like 15 more on the floor I haven't opened yet. My Mrs. of the Empire came out, and she's like, "Are you starting a retail business that I'm unaware of?" Like, no, honey, I just haven't opened it yet. But
before you jump off, where can people find you and all of this whole plugging your channel stuff?
Of course, every Thursday, you can find me at 5 Pacific Standard over at Roman of the Empire. This week coming up, we're going to be doing, and Jim, I may hit you on this one as well. You were supposed to be on it last time, but I had to move it. We're doing our favorite metal bands from 2000 to 2024. So current era metal bands, although some of the old guys might find their way in there because they're still putting stuff out.
I think I will have a few whoppers for you there. So
right on,
wait, because it's like 1 o'clock in the morning for us here in UK.
I know.
Live.
Sorry to my friends across the pond. I apologize for the hour of my show. But on that note, I am going to roll out. Gentlemen, thank you again for having me.
By the way, sorry, one more thing. You still doing X-Files?
Jacob Ironside does X-Files.
Sorry.
So we work together all the time, so I understand the confusion. So you gentlemen continue on with this fantastic conversation. We didn't even get to the Batman-Superman fight. So I will see you guys around the interwebs. Take care and stay awesome.
Thanks very much.
Salutations. Right. Alex, you've been quiet this evening. It's been your entire creation. I'm actually going to have to jump off this chair to be a human being for a minute or two. So
That's
I'll be right back.
Well, I've been waiting to get a word in edgeways, really. When I first came to Batman, it's the Michael Keaton version. And then later on, I started discovering more and more. And then when they brought out the animation to The Dark Knight Returns, I was immediately like interested. And how can I put this? It's one of those unique comics that you can't put down. Once you get reading it, you have to finish it.
Mm-hmm.
And also, the Michael Keaton version, Tim Burton version, they took a lot of inspiration from The Dark Knight Returns, which is absolutely fantastic. Sorry.
I do feel like the Michael Keaton version is slightly has a bit more of a crossover appeal, whereas the comic, it's good, but it's a bit niche. I feel like you'd have to be a bit of a Batman fan to fully grasp it, I think. Whereas whereas the film version, it kind of lays it all out for you. So if you're new to Batman, it's a good way in. The film's a great way in. You kind of always have to kind of be into Batman, I think, in the first place to maybe appreciate The Dark Knight Returns.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
It's also, how can I put this? Going from the six Adam West TV version of Batman, everything was back branded in a way, back burgers, back shark repellent, you had so many comedical type of things, and then throughout, the 70s going into the 80s, it was still more, a lighter tone with Batman. And then this comes out the middle of nowhere and just changes it overnight. People were not looking at it as in it's not fun anymore, and it's not for kids.
Well, it's about the burden of Batman, isn't it? It's about he's not just a hero doing the hero thing. He's burdened by this, and he's tried to give it up, and now it's kind of aching in him that Gotham needs me, and I shouldn't have given this up, and I'm still haunted by what happened with my parents. And I know that what happened to me, the trauma, it's of the kind of people who did that to my parents are still, we got a new generation of criminals who would just like them, and the nightmare never ends, the cycle never ends, and he has to, it's. And
the thing is, it just goes to show that after the Justice League split up,
mm-hmm.
and what was it? Superman said he was like the golden boy, no, the poster child,
mm-hmm.
for the president.
Mm-hmm.
Superman can't be everywhere at one time, right?
No.
And it just goes to show that, Gotham, after Batman retired, Gotham went to hell in a handbag.
Yeah.
And it's not the same anymore. It wasn't the same so it's like Bruce failed.
It's, it's almost like
we have the mega geek. Yeah.
No, it's like you almost feel like welcome.
Yeah, I'm
Ian.
sorry I'm late. Sorry guys. I was on another live stream and it just went on and on. But it was enjoyable. So yeah. So how's everybody? Okay?
Yeah, we're all right. Just Roman by 4 minutes.
All right. We're talking about Batman, right? Or have I got
we're talking about The Dark Knight Returns, the classic, the comic that changed everything.
Yes.
I mean, what you said out there, Alex, I think it's almost like you feel what's happened to Gotham almost feels like, it's almost feels as much of a tragedy as what happens to any city. It's almost like it becomes almost like a real city that's had a real tragic fall.
And Roman was right about, what went on in that comic is like a reflection of what it is today.
Yeah.
And it is very scary. It's like, did Frank Miller predict the future?
I think this film's a great movie, to tell you the truth. It is. It's a terrific movie. I like the way Nolan puts everything that's comic bookish into a real kind of situation. I mean, barring the point that he's got a costume on, but apart from that, everything's kind of real. And also, I remember somebody was talking about the latest Batman, the one with the guy from Twilight,
Robert Pattinson.
Yeah, and I always say that Nolan's one's better. Do you know why? Because Nolan had a handle on the fantastical in this movie. When you watch that other movie, he just had an ordinary car as a Batmobile, but this Batmobile can drive on roofs. Do you know what I mean? And smash up things and stuff like that.
I was going to say, Ian, have you ever read The Dark Knight?
Yes, I've read it.
Right. So when you read this, what was your, ideal? Because you must, I know you very remember like Adam West's version, the lighter tone and everything else. And then you pick that up and you go, okay. What was your thoughts when you first
with that comic, right? That's Frank Miller. Yeah. And everybody keeps thinking it started from there, but it didn't. Frank Miller did Daredevil first. And he recreated Daredevil in so to speak, in his own image and the way that Miller saw things in comic books. And he did the same thing with this as well. So I really like what he did with the Dark Knight Returns. Batman older. He has the I can't remember the name of the girl who plays Robin. The female, female Robin, stuff like that. But also, again, looks like Superman was brought out by the government, and and it's just again, the best thing about Nolan and Miller is that they can take something comic bookish and put it in the real world and mix it with a great balance. And I think that's what those two can do better than others, if you know what I mean. So they get the balance right, in my opinion. Don't know what you guys think.
I mean, Alex, just to contradict you a little bit, like the TV series, the Batman comics, the Adam West TV series, I think even then, like a lot of the comics that came after were still kind of, they weren't quite like that. But the TV series was campy. I don't think the comics necessarily were. I think the comics still had a bit of the grit to them, but they didn't quite have the depth that the Dark Knight Returns did. Like they were kind of, there was still the idea of, still kind of, there's still grit to the comics, if you know what I mean. There was a grit that wasn't quite there in the TV series, but so I think it was heading a grittier way anyway. But obviously, this was the groundbreaker that, like I said.
Yeah, I mean, I think at that moment in time, I think people wanted something different in their comics, and I remember there was a point where I got off DC and Marvel, and because I just got tired of it. You naturally get to a point where you stop reading, and then I was into the punk rock comics like Tank Girl and stuff like that, the British comics that came out and stuff like that. And then one day I was
Tank Girl was actually quite funny. I even like the film, even though it's probably one of the worst rated film on Rotten Tomatoes. But I kind of liked it.
It was all right. I thought
it wasn't the best, but I liked it.
I thought who's the girl that played her? Petty. I can't remember her name. She was a good. She
only did like 2 films or whatever it was, but
Laurie Petty. Yeah, she was good. I thought she was good as Tank Girl. But what I'm saying is that I remember getting it, reading Tank Girl and reading all these punk rock comics. I got tired of, and then one day I went into Forbidden Planet, and there was Sin City sitting on the thing, and it's only because of the way it was drawn I picked it up. When I started reading it, I couldn't put it down, and I had to buy it. So that's when I discovered Frank Miller. Frank Miller was changing the face of the way we see comic book characters. And I think that was one of those major changes when it came to comic books. I don't know if you guys agree, but
I'm like I've always been, I'm brutally honest. It's not been until recently when I started meeting all of you guys. And I mean, everybody I'd been talking to, from Purple to Mega Geek here, to Sadako, to Alex, to PJ, to Wen, to Darren, people that are creating their own content and doing stuff and getting things out there. It's now that I've started paying attention to, hey, who is the creator behind this?
Yeah.
And what are they doing? Before this, it was literally Spielberg, Lucas, and the name escapes me. Scott, something from Scott Ridley, yeah, Gladiator, and all of those stuff. It's hang on, that's really good. But you see a trajectory. They have a very rising career. Spielberg hasn't done hands-on anything in 25 years now.
Yeah, he's done a few bits, but the thing is though,
not hands-on.
Yeah, he's retired.
Like, I'll pay the money, and you guys go and do what you want to do.
But the thing is, though, Spielberg has done so much, hasn't he? So he's just sitting back. He's just kicking back, isn't he? I mean, I would never make The Post. I thought The Post was. I love Spielberg. I thought The Post was one of the most boring films I've ever seen Spielberg direct. And also, what is it? Lincoln was terrible as well. But when you get to that point where you've become a legend in people's minds, and you've done so many great things, what else can you give? Do you know what I mean? What else can you do? You know, so he's just doing it because he can do it. You know what I mean?
I think it's also a bit of fear in these really influential characters that we've had throughout history in terms of film and movie making and all of that. They know I can't top Terminator 2. I cannot make a film better than Terminator 2 ever, regardless of what it is. Maybe Titanic. I believe that's the same director behind it. Possibly, but it is touch and go on that. It is the innovative, creating part of being someone that can do this stuff. And I am so jealous of everybody of you here that have this creative streak.
Well, everybody's creative. They just have to find something that they like doing, that they're passionate about doing, basically. So I don't believe there's no one in this world that doesn't have a creative streak in them. Do you know what I mean? Whether it be like a mother who looks after their kid in a creative way, I don't know. Do you know what I mean? So it's all about the passion of what you like doing, and how you do it. So I don't. When people say only few people have creative things, I don't believe that at all. It's rubbish.
Yeah,
I think everybody's
I will have to beg to differ on that one, because I know I got a bit of a creative streak. Right. I love building minifigurines and everything, and Alex has reintroduced me to Lego after literally a quarter of a century of not touching a piece of Lego whatsoever. If I'm counting the boxes that I have still not open, I probably got about 3,500 pieces worth of Lego to build again. And for me, that's creative. The mechanical, the engineering part of it. But coming up with the idea, new story, new universe.
Yeah, but that's
I'll have to raise my hand and say I could never invent E.T.
Yeah, but that's different, though, isn't it? That's a different kettle of fish. You just said the word creative, and the word creative doesn't only refer to people who can do that. Being creative is more than that, isn't it? So I don't know. Maybe you're right, maybe you're wrong. I don't know. You know, and you're right.
Saying it's a drawback, but it is. I wish I had that imaginative nature of coming up with something like Frank Miller did with Batman. Okay, he didn't invent Batman. It was already there.
Yeah.
But he took it in such an amazing path. And not only did it evolve Batman better, at least in my mind, I think Frank Miller's universe part of Batman is better than what was there before.
But you know what? It's all to do with who you are as a person. That's what it is. So if you take, for instance, Spielberg, Spielberg made family films mostly when he was in his prime, you know, scary films. They're all linked with families. And that mirrored who he was as well, because his dad, you know, divorced his mum and he was mostly with his mum, and do you know what I mean? And he lived in suburbia and wanted to be a filmmaker. So when you watch his films, Poltergeist, you know, E.T., Close Encounters. You're talking about suburbia there. You're talking about magical things happening in suburbia. So it's all about, and I'm pretty sure Frank Miller had a really dark past because the stuff that he coughed up is quite dark. So it's just applying who he is to the creative process. Like he's applying who he is to Batman. Spielberg's applying who he is to the ideas that are presented to him. And
well, like,
yeah, sorry.
So, yeah, but what I like about what Frank Miller did with this comic was it wasn't just a case of, he wasn't just like in a blasé way presenting the cliched, grimy darkness of a, heroes and villains in a really nasty city. He kind of like, you get the sense he was kind of trying to, what he was writing was meant to be cathartic, and it was trying to kind of, look into how someone would make sense of a gritty world like this, and how it would affect someone emotionally. So it wasn't just a kind of a studio set, like one of those crime thrillers, where it's all the rundown of cliches. It's actually what this does, the psychological toll this would have on someone like Batman, or and by the way, have you seen Red Letter Media's review on Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, the Indiana Jones film?
No.
Well, because he kind of made a point that, like, it's if you watch the whole review, it's actually if you get past some of the really tasteless humor in that review, that basically he's making the point that Spielberg was in his prime when he was young and a bit more reckless, and that's the reason why Kingdom of the Crystal Skull didn't work as well is because Spielberg's older now. He's a bit more responsible. He has to be a bit more careful, a bit more family aware, and aware of what focus group says. It says he was at his prime when he didn't care, and he was a more that rebellious thing and that risk taking phase. It's like that's what's missing from older Spielberg, if you know what I mean.
Well, I think the thing about Spielberg was that he was contracted to make 5 Indiana Jones movies, and so he didn't really want to make Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. According to the things that I've read, he didn't want to make it, but he owed George a favor, so he did it. And you can tell his heart's not in it when you watch the film. Obviously, he's a great director. Some of the stuff that he directed in that film, the direction's sublime as always. But you can tell when you look at it, you can tell this movie is half-heartedly done. The stupid things like the monkey stuff. Sorry, go ahead.
That's the whole circle. And I can't claim any big part of fame or anything in terms of making or contributing to the Hollywood production or anything like that. But I've seen it from the inside because I was fortunate enough to do my IT supporting work and every now and then helping out, and realizing that there is everything from the angle of the camera to the people having presence on stage. Yeah. And I'm going to use Hodor from
Star Wars.
No, not Star Wars. What's it called?
Game of Thrones?
Game of Thrones, yes.
Right.
Yeah.
I saw him in a film just after he got killed off in Game of Thrones. The guy can't act. The guy can't act at all. But he was directed really well in Game of Thrones. So now you have the synergy between the director and the cameraman. The angle is being shot at, and someone being able to coach him. Do this, talk slower, talk faster. Do this, do that. And suddenly you have 5 people just making one thing happen. So there's a massive synergy in making something come out on the cinema screen. And I think it's the same when it comes to someone making a comic book. You need the panel, you need the background, you need the foreground, you need whoever it is that is at the focus at the moment. And then you need the dialogue. Because you want someone that is having to lift the pages. Okay, for us us being grown ups to read the comic books in the 80s, we didn't have internet. We literally had to flip pages on a book
Yep.
Not just click a mouse button and just read the next panel or the next page. So there is a lot of work going in there.
There is, but remember that one person is only one part of that big tapestry, if you know what I mean. So it depends. If you're good at that one part, then yeah, you're going to excel. Doesn't necessarily mean to say you're going to make a crap load of money, because the playing field now has completely changed. You know, people are not.
In the 80s, you may have made a crap load of money, but
not today though. Not today, but you know, I mean, as I said though, you know, it's a difficult thing trying to. If you were born with a talent, and I don't know whether people are born with talent, to tell you the truth, then I guess it's your duty to actually do something with it. You know, I don't know.
I wouldn't say duty. I would say, as someone that's worked in IT for far longer than I would like to admit, I like computers because I understand them. They're very easy. They're not like people. They don't mouth back at you, and they don't give you grievance or anything. Although people might disagree on that, but I understand what the computer is supposed to do, how it's supposed to work, and if it doesn't, I know how to fix it. I don't consider working in IT or computers as a job, if that makes sense. Something about computer just comes naturally to me. And I think it's the same for someone that has the creative flair. If you're really good at drawing, I mean, I'd still break stick figures at my age, and I've drawn probably at least 1,000 of them. You would think I should be good enough by now, but I'm not. Well, so it doesn't come down to the whole thing of repetition makes something perfect, or you spend 10,000 hours making something and suddenly you are really getting good at it.
Yeah. Anyway, right. Going back to the Dark Knight Returns, I'm going to, Ian, I'm going to throw this question at you, because you as a director, Zack Snyder borrowed elements, right, from it and incorporated it into his films. Batman versus Superman, Dawn of Justice, the Justice League, you know. But if you wanted to make a live action version of The Dark Knight Returns, would you strictly stick to the comic, and who would you be your ideal Batman to play that role?
I would stick to the comic, basically. I think it's disrespectful to take the Dark Knight, especially someone like Frank Miller. Yeah, it's a classic, and take it in another direction. It's you have to stick to what you've got in the comics. I mean, not necessarily sticking to the dialogue that's in the script. Obviously, things will have to change, but sticking closely to the comic and making that come alive. I mean, Zach is the only thing Zach's ever directed that was great for me was obviously Watchmen, because Watchmen was pretty close, apart from changing the ending, which I thought was the right thing to do. But I don't know who I'd get to play Batman. He's an older chap in this, so there are lots of good actors that can take that character and make it better than it is in the comic. But I wouldn't know really. I mean, if we were talking about 20 years ago, I would have definitely cast Clint Eastwood. Definitely. Clint Eastwood have made a great Batman.
I think Frank Miller was aiming for Clint Eastwood's you know, I can't say vision, but the type of character Clint Eastwood played in most films and to what he was now. I think Clint Eastwood would have made a great Batman.
Yeah, I think, as I said, an older Batman, he would have made a great older Batman, and because he does look like he beat the crap out of people, and he does, you know, even as Bruce Wayne, you know, could be someone that you won't mess with. So yeah, he'd probably be great. But today, I wouldn't know. Today is it's a different playing field now, isn't it? Most actors are.
Here's a mad idea. Like, I mean, obviously, when he was still with us, could Leonard Nimoy have played the Batman here? Do you think?
I don't know, because he's so Spock. You know, even when he was in Body Snatchers, when I saw him in Body Snatchers, your mind just goes that Spock. Do you know what I mean? You just can't, you couldn't get away from that. So I think that would be a bad move, in my opinion, to cast Nimoy as Batman. Alan Richardson, who was in Reacher, he's screaming these days saying he wants to play Batman. I mean, he'd make a good Batman, but not an older Batman, because he looks far too young. And also now they're drawing Batman with huge muscles, aren't they? Now it's not like in the 70s where Batman was lean and, you know, a gymnast and all that stuff. But with this Batman that they've been thrown at us on film, you know, it's quite weighty. But
what about Costner? Kevin Costner, do you think he could do it for this?
The problem with Kevin Costner is that he hasn't got the old man thing about him. Do you know what I mean? Like in the comic, in The Dark Knight Returns, he has that thing, doesn't he? Even though he's really cool, when people try to mug him and stuff, you know. But when you read it, you just think of Clint Eastwood, basically. Get off my lawn, get off my Batmobile, that kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? So I don't know. Maybe I don't know. It's hard today, right? If I was quite wealthy, I would never, ever attempt to make a Batman movie or a Superman movie, because I'd wait until the playing field's better. Because no matter what you do, it's going to be criticized to hell, isn't it? Let's face it. And you know,
I was going to bring up. You watched the animation, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
What did you think of Peter Weller voicing Batman?
It was okay. I don't know about you guys, but I didn't think his voice was right personally. But it wasn't offensive. It kind of worked. I don't know what you guys thought.
I was still getting
it didn't feel right to me, like you're saying. It was just something slightly off.
Yeah.
It wasn't a perfect match, but it wasn't bad.
I've not seen it. So I've not seen the animated version. I mean, to my mind, I feel I prefer them to do what they've already done, which is not necessarily remake the comic, but take bits of it and add to their own story. And I think that's what the Batman animated series did, and that's what the Tim Burton and indeed particularly the Dark Knight Rises. Like I reading this again, I noticed like it took a lot of cues from the Dark Knight Returns. You know, particularly the thing about Batman faking his death and so he can retire, and the whole thing where he's talking about being out of practice with this and having the aches of age and that kind of thing.
And also, right, that the cover of the book, I mean, that image is so, now it's become iconic, isn't it? This image.
Yes.
So you got to have that in the film, definitely. Do you know what I mean? So
the thing is, the way I see it, it's like I'm back, bitches. Love it.
Yeah, it is. I mean, as I said, right, it's maybe who'd make a good voice? Maybe Michael Ironside. Maybe he's got a
that could work.
Good voice. Yeah, he's got a good.
See you at the party, Victor.
That's Arnie.
You see, I've always loved Michael Ironside because of his presence on screen.
Yes.
You know what?
Rather than just his voice.
I the reason I'm laughing is I remember when Michael Ironside was in Starship Troopers, and there's that bit where he gets kind of eaten by the bugs, and he and it's directed by Paul Verhoeven, who also directed Total Recall. I remember one of the sci-fi mags, one guy wrote in, "What is it with Paul Verhoeven and his sadism towards Michael Ironside?" Like in Total Recall, the guy loses his arms, but that wasn't enough for him. He has to do Starship Troopers and take away his legs as well.
Yeah. But
has Michael Ironside really aged between? Oh crap! What's it called? We just said the film name.
Starship Troopers.
Yeah.
Starship Troopers, and when he goes to when he's the agent. Preventing Schwarzenegger going to Mars and all that stuff. And films in between that, he's literally looked the same for decades.
Well, he's the last
old
film
now.
Yeah, the last film he was in was Nobody, wasn't it? He was in Nobody. So his stomach is definitely wider than it was. And he's in his, I think he's in his 70s, late 70s maybe. He's still got it though. His voice is still there. It's not like it's it's all craggy or anything like that. His voice is there. I saw a picture of Clint Eastwood recently. Oh my god, that guy looks like Catweasel. Do you know what I mean? He's so old. It's just, but he is 93, so you got to give it to him. But it makes me feel sad when I see people that were powerhouse when they're in their prime, like Clint Eastwood, and now when you look at him, you think, what it basically, when you look at him, it reminds you that you're gonna get to that point too. Do you know what I mean? And it kind of saddens me. That
the only one that has stood out to me when it comes to time marches on, time is unforgiving. It is the Tom Welling.
Oh
that
yes,
played Superman in Smallville.
Yeah.
But then he also plays not the nice guy.
Yeah.
I should try not to give spoilers in the Lucifer TV show.
Yes, yes.
And it took me a good 10 episodes. And I'm one of those that refuses to go on IMDb or Google something. It's like, there's something familiar about that one. But I was just sitting there. I recognize this character. I know the actor behind it. I've seen them before, but I couldn't clock it.
His face has gotten wider. That's why. That's why you couldn't recognize him, because his face has literally gotten wider. And he's still good looking fella. But you're right, because when I was watching Lucifer, he played the boss, didn't he? I think I can't remember what season it was. And he knew who Lucifer was. But yeah, he was broader. His face was wider. But he still had that voice. So, it's incredible when you think about it.
Yeah, the voice was there, but it was a little bit matured, so to speak. Someone, say James Earl Jones.
Yeah.
James Earl Jones definitely didn't sound like teenager James Earl Jones.
No,
if you go to the whole voice thing, but he's been an iconic voice since 78.
Yeah.
But in the 60s, I think he probably spoke like this.
You reckon?
I'm very certain that he had all the teenage hiccups and everything, where you're trying to sound like a good big man and everything, and then suddenly your voice breaks.
Yeah.
You are not Akeem.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to move on because Roman never got a chance to bring this up. The fight in the comic between Batman versus Superman, compared to Batman versus Superman, the Snyder version.
Oh, God, yeah.
I've not seen the Snyder version, and
don't.
Like I said, well, see, I've recently got Justice League, and I've got it because I do actually like Gal Gadot's Superwoman.
Wonder Woman.
Wonder Woman. Sorry, Freudian slip.
Who doesn't?
Yeah. But so could I watch? Do you think I could watch Justice League without having seen the Batman versus Superman? Do you think it's? Do you think I could watch it?
You could.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Cool.
Yeah.
But you know what? The what you call it? It's really just common sense, really. So when you look at that fight between Batman and Superman in the film, it just was so dumb and stupid that I was literally slapping my head, going, "Why did they even do?" Like, if Superman's gonna punch someone, and if he doesn't matter how much gear he's got on him, Batman, if he hits him and he flies and he smashes through a window, he's not getting up. Doesn't matter how much muscles you got. You should never have that in a film. If it's just stupid. The whole fight was just really stupid.
Now,
do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree fully that the whole thing is just breaking the immersion.
Yeah.
Thinking so, this is Zack Snyder did it, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
Now, when Zack Snyder did Watchmen, he seemed to be very. Am I right that he was very, very faithful to the comic, like to the original comic?
No.
Oh no.
No, he wasn't.
Okay.
He wasn't faithful at all. Basically, he mixed a few comics within, because look, there is a rumor that the reason why they pushed it out so fast is because the execs in Warner Brothers gets a pay rise to a certain point when it comes to the turn of the tax year. So they wanted, or was that Justice League? I can't remember. It's one of those films. So they pushed everything out really, really fast so they can get a pay rise. That's one of the reasons why. But going back to Zach, right? I can't believe that script passed compliances. I really can't. It was so stupid. The whole film was stupid. Do you remember that scene in it where Superman stops Batman, and he's and the Batman's in his Batmobile, and he lands. And he says something to him. Why didn't Superman grab him and take him to jail? Exactly. So that's how stupid the script was, right?
Yeah.
And previously he was talking about
in that thing other than just visual effects.
Yeah.
If we're putting it to that crass term, and like I said, probably when was it 25 minutes ago, there is this whole circle that you need of the creatives, the people doing the visuals, the people doing the framing, the people delivering the storylines. It all has to mesh, and it feels like in that whole thing, there is nobody that consulted with anybody else. It's like, we're doing what we're doing
because nobody knew what was going on. No, and they didn't know anything about it. The execs don't know.
Like the reason I brought up Watchmen was because apparently, like reportedly, when Zack Snyder was doing Watchmen, he gave everyone the comic and said, "Look, I want it to look at like this." That's what I was told, and I thought, I thought he would have tried maybe the same approach with the Batman versus Superman of giving them the Dark Knight to say, "Look, make it okay."
I just want to bring up like the fight in the comic. You know, Batman has a heart attack.
Yeah.
And it's game over. But in the film, the Zack Snyder's version, it's Martha, and you think, and do you know how many memes they created out of that?
That's what I'm saying. It's one of the worst scripts ever written in the entire history of script writing. It really is bad. I mean, having a scene in it where he's sleeping near his monitor, and then suddenly the flash comes out and goes, "Whoa!" Then it disappears with no context what that means or what it's connected to. Nothing. You're just sitting there in the cinema going, "What the hell was that?" Do you know what I mean? And it's just none of it made any sense. It was just stupid.
It's not our big plans, but they fall flat, really.
Didn't it? I mean, and then there's these flying things. He has this dream, and there's these flying things, and Superman, takes his mask off, and then and no context to what that's connected to or anything. Even when the film had finished, you're sitting there wondering, well, what the hell did that mean? Do you know what I mean? And it's just
it was the warm up to the Justice League, but it didn't say
that.
But
But why would you put something in there when it doesn't even explain where it comes from?
I know.
It's just the worst script ever. I was so disappointed when I came out of the cinema.
But don't forget, they were trying to create their own cinematic universe, and because they were trying to rival Marvel at the time.
Yeah, but still, though, it made no sense what they were doing. Why didn't they have someone to check the scripts? And anyway,
it comes back to the whole thing of lack of talent.
And also,
like I confessed, I can't come up with an amazing story like, say, the Rebecca Gold stuff that someone I will not mention have managed to create and bring to life and all of that. I've not seen all of it. I've only seen small part of it, and it's stuff that is like it grips you for some reason. He
wouldn't go that far. I don't know. I don't know.
But even something as silly as, and I know I'm getting away from the Dark Knight and all that, but if we take Tango and Cash,
yes,
that is a film that should not have worked if you just look at the core components. Kurt Russell, Sly, cheesy 80s, early 90s cop drama. I'm saying 80s because it doesn't feel like a 90s script, even though the film was produced or delivered in the 90s. It feels like something written in the 80s. But
that's why
it works.
Yeah, that's why it worked, I guess, because they knew they knew that films before that everybody was into action movies at that moment in time. You had Commando, and you had all those kind of movies. So they knew that stood a good chance. You got Sylvester Stallone, and you got Kurt Russell. What else are you gonna? That film's gonna make money.
Well, see, the thing is, Commando is a perfect kind of contrast to what Roman was saying about The Dark Knight, because The Dark Knight Returns, because in that there's no kind of nuance and there's no kind of psychoanalyzing. Is Batman good or bad? It's just Arnie's like I'll just shoot the bad guys with impunity. It's okay, they're bad guys. You're a funny guy, Sal. I'm going to kill you last. It's like no kind of. It's just amoral. It doesn't care about or anything like that. It's just.
But that was the fun of the movie, though, wasn't it? It was a lot of fun.
I know. Yeah. There's one part of the comic, but also in the animation which I was surprised about, was a tall, blonde-haired woman who looked like Bridget Nielsen with swastikas on her tits.
Yeah.
Bruno.
Yeah, I mean there's a few things in that comic that they kind of you would probably never do today, I guess.
Yeah, and also another thing, where the Joker kills, the host of the TV show.
Yeah.
And they incorporate that into the Joker film.
Yeah.
So frankly, it's like there's no original ideas these days with DC and Marvel. They're just borrowing elements from all the great comics.
Well, the thing is, again, right? If I was going to make a Superman movie, or if I was going to make a Batman movie, I would basically stick to the origin and the plan, which is we know Batman doesn't kill, which Zack changed, which makes no sense, because then he's just as bad as the bad guys, right?
Yeah.
So Batman operates at night and takes out the scum.
Mm-hmm.
Superman operates during the day and takes out the scum, I guess. So Superman is about the American way of living, truth, justice, and the American. And Batman's below the law. He's actually below the law, but sometimes the law turns a blind eye because he's doing such a good job cleaning up Gotham streets. That is the playing field that you should be working with. Not going beyond that and breaking those rules. It's like having Roadrunner capture, Coyote capturing the Roadrunner. That is not one of the rules that shouldn't be explored. So that's what I'm saying, and that's what they did. So that's why it didn't work.
There's one part of the comic and the scene in the animation where Bruce and Clark are having a meeting, and you've got Bruce attending to the horses, and Clark's just standing there, full white shirt, open chest, and he's holding an eagle, and you've got Bruce up there thinking, show off,
He's a lot older there, though, Clark, isn't he? So plus he's definitely been brought out by the government, so he's very much for the American government. He's working for, I don't know if he's working for them, but that's the impression I got. But Batman, obviously, he's not. He's, what it's really funny because DC and Marvel they are quite similar. So you got Batman, Captain America is like Superman, isn't he? It's very much about the rules and stuff and about decency and all that. Once you take those things away from those heroes, you haven't got a hero anymore. They've stripped. They stripped Superman of that in Man of Steel. Couldn't believe what they did with Man of Steel. That was just a tragedy. That film, it really was. Had the perfect guy to play Superman, and what did they do with him?
They ripped it apart.
They did. They just, the whole point of Clark's dad dying is so that he remembers that no matter how powerful he is, he couldn't even save his dad. But with this, his dad says to him, "Don't save me." Do you know what I mean? Let me go into the void and die. It was just so stupid that they changed that. That was the whole point, wasn't it?
Yeah. How can I put this? What I vaguely remember about, we're going to go to Superman here. Watching that in the Man of Steel, where Superman's father dies, and say, "Don't, son," and then the tornado gets him.
Yeah.
But the one I found more interesting was where Clark's just come home. He greets his dad, and as Clark's walking off with the dog, I know I'm talking about the Christopher, and he just holds Clark's dad's just hold his arm and go, "Oh no," and drops dead.
Yeah.
Now that was a very emotional scene compared to the Man of Steel.
Yeah, because the Man of Steel didn't make any sense because it was stupid. It really was, because Superman can move at the speed of light, so he could have saved his dad. So it just didn't none of it made any sense to me. The most interesting thing about Man of Steel was, or I found, and they didn't explore that too well, is when he was a kid and he was trying to control his powers, and he hid in the closet and stuff and didn't want to open his eyes. I thought those were the things that should be explored. There should have been more Kevin Costner in it. There should have been more of the mother. Should more of him trying to get to grips with his powers, because the 1978 version didn't have that. So they could explore that, and they didn't.
What do you think? I mean, to play devil's advocate for what I think maybe they were trying to do with that scene, like 1978, the film, it kind of does present Smallville as a very kind of a sweet old town, and it feels like in the it felt like maybe they were trying to draw, like with the Zack Snyder's version, there was maybe drawing from, say, Brokeback Mountain, where it's saying communities like that in America could actually be very intolerant, and if you didn't conform, you could, like, for instance, like there's a lot of talk in Brokeback Mountain about if you're seen as a deviant, or you are subject to being lynched, possibly, because some of these towns are just that narrow-minded and violent. And maybe it was the reason why his father said, "Don't save me," is he didn't want his son to be branded in that way, because that was just how he knew how narrow-minded the town could be. I mean,
the whole concept of that is wrong. That's what I'm saying. That should never have been in the film. The whole point of Clark's dad dying is to show that Clark is not a god. He couldn't even save, after everything that he could do, he couldn't even save his dad. Right? And that was the whole point of it. In this version, his dad willingly dies. And that takes the whole thing away from what Superman is all about. And that's why it was stupid as far as I was concerned. I was literally rolling my eyes when I saw that scene. I mean, we love the 1978 version, yes, but it's not perfect. But it's as close as you can get to the true Superman. And I don't understand why people want to change that. Like, let's take away his pants. Why? Why do you want to do that? Don't you want to stick to the classic version of Superman? Don't you want to create Superman? Why would you want have Superman have scales on his freaking costume? And in fact, why do you put false muscles on the costume when Henry has got muscles anyway? You know what I mean? So Christopher Reeves had to build up his muscles to get into the Lycra. Freaking hell. And they put muscles on these costumes now. It's just stupid. The whole thing was just... And also, if I was going to tackle a Superman movie, the first thing you've got to tackle is why people cannot see him as Superman when he's Clark.
Yeah.
There's got to be some reason why they don't connect. Because in the Zack version, you just have to look once at Henry and go, that is Superman. Do you know what I mean? As Clark, I don't understand why White didn't see it. I don't understand why Lois Lane didn't see it. It was just stupid.
It takes the right kind of performer. Christopher Reeve could do it, where he literally would, like, you even see as a scene where he's about to reveal to Lois that he's real, but it's like he takes the glasses off and you see his face change and he looks like Superman. Then he puts them back on and he just becomes Clark Kent again. And that's just how good an actor he was, that he could play such contrasting characters and make them so you believe it, and so you get the sense, okay, there's a reason why Lois believes it. Well, apart from in Superman 2, where she's like trying to dare him, like she's convinced, like she's figured it out, and she's going to try to, like, she jumps out the window just like, you're not going to let me die, are you? She jumps. It's like, God, this bitch is crazy.
Yeah, I would. I mean, today, if I was in charge of Superman, I would do what they did with Captain America. I would have Superman is able to. I know it sounds stupid, but Superman is able to shrink his body size. That's what I would do. I would have, when he's Clark Kent, he looks a lot smaller, and a lot thinner, because the effects they did for Captain America was amazing. So that's what I would do, because there is no excuse now. If somebody is, if Superman was real in real life and he puts a pair of glasses on, there's no way no one can make a connection between that and Superman. So you've got to solve that problem.
Well, isn't it a bit like saying it? But isn't it? Oh,
Hey,
so it's just
when it comes to the whole masking of a persona, it is, and I think is best portrayed by Christopher Clark. It's
Christopher Reeve.
when he puts the glasses on, he becomes this bumbling fool.
Yeah, but that in the 70s, that's all they could do. But today we have the technology to shrink down whoever's playing Superman, so he doesn't look like Superman.
Well, it's also like, well, I mean, the idea I would think would be like, say, in Doctor Who, modern Doctor Who, they've got this idea of the perception filter, like the TARDIS is there, but people don't quite see it. And if directed a certain way, written a certain way, that becomes believable. It becomes believable that there's maybe some aura to Superman. You can film it in a way that there's almost that makes
you have to explain that to the audience, though. You have to explain. Maybe it's the glasses that has the perception filter, but the problem is that
you can.
Do you really have to explain it? And I know on old school audience, I didn't need the explanation.
Well, yeah, I mean, you could
explain. With glasses on is Clark Kent. Superman is this amazing character, iconic suit and cape, can fly, can save people, can do everything. Clark Kent cannot do that.
Yeah, like if you use visually, you can explain it, like almost like the visuals can explain it. Make it kind of, I suppose, what you call visual literature. Kind of, the visual storytelling is just you get the sense from how it's directed, how it's shot, how it's, it's certain, like just the way it's framed, the way it's lit, you can play a lot with the image in a way that makes it coherent to the audience, that there is a different kind of aura that Superman gives off when he's Superman and when he's Clark, maybe.
Well, it's all down to the actor, but again, I think because we can do it now, visual effects wise, that's, if I was in charge of a Superman movie, that's what I would do. I would do a visual effect where he looks a lot smaller as Clark Kent, and also the performance. He has to be completely different to the way he speaks, to the way he holds himself up to Superman. Otherwise, people will guess who he is. It's like Henry Cavill
I would definitely join you if you ever manage to get that project off the ground and whatnot. I would definitely like to just be in there in the background, whatever. I'll lift. Heck, I even serve the catering table and whatnot. But just being in there, like nudge certain things in correct place, because there is one place where I think they did the best crossover. It's like, yes, he is Superman, but this is Clark Kent, and that is the diner scene in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah,
from the original films, where at first he's lost his Superman power because he went to the Fortress of Solitude and had an argument with Dad, and no power, and so he gets his butt kicked. But he comes back later on, and then he does, as Clark Kent, kick the butt.
Yeah.
Funny. Never seen garbage eat garbage before.
Yeah. I mean, as I said, right, I think we're due to a really good Superman movie, but I don't think Gunn's going to give us that. I think Gunn is now under he's under the woke brigade. So he's not going to give us the Superman that we deserve, which is, truth, justice, and the American way, and also the costume being right, and all that things that come with Superman. It's going to be some kind of Superman that all of us are going to question. I bet you it's not going to be the Superman that we want at all. I know that
Superman is supposed to be the Americana.
Yeah, that's what he's supposed to be, but he's not going to be because of politics now. So that's going to change. And the next Batman movie, it's going to be more of a drip. Batman's going to be the same old rubbish. Like he's a great detective, yet he did no detecting whatsoever. You know what I mean? It's just because it's like when in the last Batman movie when the Batgirl was going on about rich people and stuff like that, and I was thinking, yeah, politics, politics, politics. So
I
you
mean, it's
really
nothing
need,
about the detective nature of Batman.
yeah, there
The,
wasn't
the the
anything in there.
reason Zack Snyder
Well,
actually got away a little bit with the Batman v Superman, is that there was a lot of scenes and explanation put into that. Yes, Batman does his research. He doesn't go in blindly. He understands exactly what he's coming up against.
Yeah. Once you get to know Batman too much, then the whole point of Batman disappears. Like I remember I was watching The Flash and Batman in the day is chasing all these villains. I'm like, Batman doesn't operate during the day. Also, the more you get to know Batman, the more talkative he is, the more he comes away from that stoic kind of character as Batman, if you know what I mean.
Well, I don't know. I mean, there was like, for instance, there was even in the cartoon series, it will still show certain moments of heart, like when he's dealing with Two-Face, he'll still kind of try and reach out to Harvey because he remembers when Harvey was a good man. Like there's still he still show that human. He's not just this kind of silent kind of crime hunter. He still can even when he's being Batman and masked, he can still show moments of heart.
No. I totally understand with you, and I totally agree with you. But it's the scene with when Wonder Woman turns up. Do you remember that in The Flash?
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, Wonder Woman, blah, blah. And you're like, this isn't Batman. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is not Batman. This is rubbish. This. I don't know who wrote this, but and also again, Batman should not be traveling around during the day with his Batmobile, and he's a night dweller. So it's like
It should be a careful split between doesn't know Batman and the people that just go, hey, I saw a front cover of something and I'm gonna make an entire story around it.
yeah.
By the way, Megami, I've not seen the scene you mean, but I know why that feels wrong. It's like Batman is you always get the sense that Batman is chivalrous, and that doesn't sound like Batman at all.
Yeah, he was.
Exactly. That's what I mean. It's someone that just looked at the front cover and it's like, oh, okay, that looks like a cool thing. I'm gonna not read anything and write my own story.
Well, in that scene particularly, he was embarrassed because Wonder Woman saved him, and he was like, "Oh, thanks very much." Blah blah blah. I'm like, this isn't Batman. This is, Batman would even register that kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? He's all about doing his job and moving on. So I'm just saying that you got to be careful the way you treat these characters, because these characters, millions and millions, even billions of people like these characters. So you got to respect where they come from, respect their origin, and respect who they are. There's no point in changing them to suit what today's politics is all about, because that's not the character, and that's the mistake.
Exactly. If you took Superman from when Superman was really created, was it 100 years ago now?
No.
The world was
No.
really completely different. They haven't even started experience the what's it called, Black Friday, and it's like the Big Depression and alcohol smuggling and whatnot. He was created before that.
Yeah, but I mean, with Batman, you can still I think Batman's always had a slightly political edge to it. I mean, The Dark Knight Returns has politics to it. The Dark Knight Rises has kind of a political element to it with the whole class war business, with Catwoman actually being part of the, she's kind of saying to Bruce Wayne, you're the privileged class, and there's gonna be an uprising. That's hinting there's gonna be a popular movement that Bane is cultivating to tear down society. It's not advocating what Bane's doing. It's not saying, it's not on the side of the, working class, revolution, but it's saying that's the context of why this happened in the story. But it's saying it is in a way talking about it's alluding to the actual financial crash that happened. And
I always considered Batman as being part of the. I wouldn't say necessarily he is a billionaire. Well, Bruce Wayne is a billionaire. Batman is not. But for me, it's always been he's what can I best describe it as? If A Knight's Tale, A Knight's Tale is an amazing film about someone with nothing rising up, becoming a knight, doing the jousting and the tournaments and everything. And it's all about the heart. This isn't right. I'm doing this because I believe in it. That is Batman for me. It's yes, he comes from. Well, I can sit back and relax, and the next 10 generations of my family line can sit back and relax and not lift a finger, and we still have money to spare.
Well, it's like the money didn't give him a sense of purpose. It was like he had all the money, and he felt like he still had a purpose because it's like almost. It feels almost like his life ended when his parents died, and it's like it's like all the money couldn't make up for that. He couldn't connect with the world because of that. So he had to become something. He had to become Batman. That was how he felt a sense of purpose. He felt like so it was like he's a millionaire, but he's also
justice in there, along with tons of other things going on. But yeah, you're very correct on that part.
Yeah.
Batman's a complicated character. He is definitely scarred by life of what happened to him as a chap, and he and it's affected his life completely, and he's completely devoted to cleaning up Gotham City and making sure that that things like that didn't happen to his parents. That's his character. You try and screw around with that, then he's not Batman.
So. It essentially comes down to the core of it is what happened to me, I don't want to happen to you.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is where I find tons of my heroes. But I can see that our dear host here now is starting to get a little bit antsy.
Oh, sorry.
We've been streaming for about 2 hours. We're probably going to start rounding this one off.
Yes.
So I will pass it around the table. And
must be cold in that bat cave, mate.
Right, so okay, we start with you, Ian. What have you got coming up lately, or what is planned at the moment?
Well, I am finishing. I'm trying to finish Rebecca Gold season 2. Having little problems along the way, but it's what's expected when you make low budget stuff. So I'm trying to finish it. Also, again, I'm on Dan's channel. Not really. Doctor Who's really gone to it's really dead now as far as I'm concerned. So I don't know what I'm going to be saying on his channel, but I appear on that. I was just on the Galactic Girls just a minute ago talking about 90s movies, which I love. And that's
they
basically
had a good
what I'm doing.
stream just a few hours ago.
Yeah. So that's the kind of things that I've been doing on live streaming.
That's with Blue Bonnet. She actually got me streaming for the first time.
Yeah,
it was her. She introduced me to the world of streaming.
I like them. They're fun. They're fun to be around. So yeah, but that's basically what I'm doing, and I'm on Twitter and the usual places, Facebook and stuff like that. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
Sadaku?
I might have a few more commentary videos coming out. I've done like the script and the recording for certain commentary videos that I'll probably put out later. Like I've got a few political ones. One I might do on Doctor Who on 2 subjects. One is going to be on a retrospective of Big Finish and whether, because there's been the talk about is Big Finish going to get retired? I don't hope, because I like there's a lot of stuff the Big Finish did in the golden days I love, and so like my video is going to kind of be more about kind of saying, well, look, if the ship's sinking, these are the titles you should get while they're hot, get it before it sinks. I've also done a longer stream on Doctor Who's relationship with the military, and I thought I'd put together kind of a retrospective on how the show's attitude has changed with times.
Right.
I'm really thinking of doing a retrospective stream on Sliders as well. The old
I like Sliders.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good show.
That's a good one.
Yeah, that's one I definitely want to do. But I can't say which order they're going to come out in them. That's all works in progress, really.
Ian, check the private chat, by the way.
Oh, okay.
Jim, what
Yeah.
have you got coming up?
So at the moment, I'm just trying to balance everything between streaming and just sorting general life out.
Yeah.
I've got a few cute ideas that I've been playing around with, but I'm not going to promise anyone anything. I know I've been playing the persona of Jim the Viking.
Mm-hmm.
I know that
Well, you're saying you are
Viking is Viking is the wrong word, because Viking is an action and not a race or character.
Yep.
I always find that amusing when someone says, "Oh, you call yourself a Viking? Are you a racist?" Just go like, dude, Viking means someone that travels the world.
Yes.
And that's literally what I've done. I'm about 3,500 miles away from where I was actually born, living and working and exploring and experiencing the world. So I've been trying to play around a little bit with that, but I do struggle with the idea of becoming like a professional streamer. It's the one thing that scares me is what if I do get successful?
Yeah.
But I am going to try and make something with maybe a website or something like that. But that might be a couple of months down the line, just to share my knowledge, my geeky collections, and everything.
Are you on Twitter, by the way?
I am on Twitter. You can find me under Jim the Viking, but the @ sign is under @Viperbane.
But you should do it because you enjoy it, Jim. You shouldn't do it because you want to be successful and all that. Because majority of successful live streamers I've spoken to, they did it because it was their passion and they enjoy doing it. So I think once your passion's established and it comes through the screen, then people gravitate towards it. I think that's how it works. I'm probably wrong about that, though.
No,
So I wouldn't worry about things like
you're
that.
absolutely correct, because I did have a YouTube channel, and the thing that stands out for me is that most of you probably know Heels versus Babyface. He just had his 12th anniversary.
Yeah.
And I looked back at the YouTube channel that unfortunately don't have control or access to. But 15 years ago, I was doing a little bit of the World of Warcraft streaming, uploading videos and everything. But I was running on a machine that was not meant. You could either play the video game or you could record a video. So it's 50-50. So I really didn't stick with it. But it was a surprising amount of views that's been generated on that kind of content. But it is, like you say, and it's all about, I would like to present this to you. And something I would like to bring forward is, this is stuff that I grew up with.
Yeah.
This is how I saw the world. We spoke about it earlier. I'm not sure if you were on by the time, Ian, but when I was saying the translation to Swedish was always horrendous. And when I was trying to retranslate it back to English, it just didn't work. I picked up the Wheel of Time, the first book, in Swedish. And then a few years later, I picked it up in English, and I was halfway through the book before I realized I know this story from somewhere else. There's too many similarities. So maybe do something like that. But it's coming up with the ideas, and that's where I really suck. Because the creativity, the ideas behind it, what would someone...
Maybe you're thinking about it. Maybe you're thinking about it too much.
Maybe.
Well,
no one's noticed the T-shirt I've been wearing all night, have they?
Well, we can't see it, dude. Oh, it's got Batman. I see it. Batman. Right, gotcha.
It's Batman, but the funny thing is, you've got key. I'm trying to point my fingers in the right direction.
Remember your left to right, everybody.
Yes. Right. So you got right. West, Keaton, Gilmer, Clooney, Bale, Affleck, Derek Trotter. I was going to show that clip tonight, but you know,
it's a good clip.
Yeah. But for anyone who's never read the comic, I advise you go out there to all good comic book stores and pick up a comic.
Get it closer to the screen because all we see is your light.
Yeah, there we go.
There we go. That's an awesome silhouette.
And if you don't fancy reading it, watch the animation version because you'll be taken away, especially with this iconic image behind me.
Yep, certainly is.
Right. Does anyone hear music at all?
No, I cannot.
There you go.
Okay. Me and Colin will be back on the 13th of May. We were supposed to be back on the 6th, but due to Colin being going back in time and taking part in a battle or something, we won't be on the 5th, it'll be the 13th of May now. I'd like to thank my panel, Mega Geek, Sadaku, Din the Viking, and Roman of the Empire for hosting such a great show. So you'll find us out on Twitter and YouTube, Land and everything else, and also Spotify. So everyone, take care. Thank you very much and have a fun time. See you soon.
Ta-da.
Take care, everyone. Wow.